So with all that in mind, let's turn our attention to how we can be doing some planning and preparation for our lessons as we prepare to teach kids of intermediate age. When I was in college learning to become a professional teacher, I was taught that planning and preparation make up 70% of the total act of teaching a lesson. And that really just blew my mind. In other words, the biggest part of being an effective catechist is what we do before we enter the classroom. And so we really need to spend time looking at this whole idea of planning and preparation. So let me offer some advice for you. The first thing is that I really encourage you between now and the time that you begin teaching to sit down and read your textbook that the students are going to be using. You don't have to read it word for word, but get a good idea of the whole flow of that group. And then once you get to know the kids in your group, you're going to see just how capable they are of moving along with that textbook and how often and how detailed you're going to be using it, and then you can adjust as needed. And then I also encourage you to examine that catechist manual. I like to think of that catechist manual as your best friend, other than me, of course, and my blog. But this catechist manual is going to have the plan for your lesson. It's going to have suggestions for the kind of questions you can ask. It's going to have suggestions for activities that you can do that are taking the kids off the page, so to speak, getting the nose out of the books and doing some activities that are fun and engaging, and also reinforcing what's been learned. I think one of the biggest problems that many catechists experience is that we simply try to do too much. We often try to teach too many concepts in one class. And, it's like we think we need to teach the entire catechism in a 60-minute period. It's important for you to know that you have permission to not do everything. You have permission to not cover the whole book. What's important is to focus on what I call the big idea. You should be able to sum up your lesson as you're planning it in one sentence. Tonight, I want the kids to learn blank. What is that big idea? They should be able to repeat that at the end of class. I like to tell the catechist, this is what you want them to say when their parents pick them up and they hop in the car and the parents say, so what did you learn tonight? And instead of the kids saying, I don't know, you want to be able to have them respond with one big idea, something like, we learned about the sacrament of baptism and grace. Wouldn't that be great if they could summarize something in just that one sentence and be able to kind of have something concrete like that to share? So it's important for us to get our heads wrapped around that big idea. And one of the ways that we find out what that big idea is by looking at, in your catechist guide, most catechist guides from whatever publisher you're using have a page that looks something like this. This is taken from the Finding God program that's put out by Loyola Press. And if you look right up here at the top, it gives you the big idea for that session. It's talking about how God creates the world, and the theme is God's love for us is seen in His creation. So when those kids get picked up by their parents and they say, what did you learn? Those kids should be able to say, we learned about God's creation. That's it. They could say more, but wouldn't it be great if they could at least say that? And then we're going to find lots of different things that we can help them know about God's creation. But we want them to know, first of all, that creation is the work of God. The other thing about a page like this, called the Get Ready Guide, are these steps that I just outlined. You see in the Finding God program, there's 4 steps. We engage the young people, we explore our tradition, we reflect on what we learned, and then we respond. We start to move out into the world as different people. These steps are really important for us to know as a catechist because every lesson has a flow. And St. Ignatius of Loyola taught this concept in the following manner. He said that when you're teaching, you need to be sure that you enter through their door, but be sure to leave through your door. Now, what he's talking about is that first step that I showed you in that process, that we engage them. We want to enter into their world and find something that grabs their attention, but it's going to be related to the lesson somehow. It's going to be a hook for the lesson. Jesus did this all the time. He was always looking for images to grab people's attention by saying the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, or the kingdom of heaven is like a net thrown into the ocean. He was finding images that were hooks that people could say, oh yeah, I get that. That's from my life. So when we look at kids of intermediate age, I found a few things that kind of come to mind, and I'm going to toss them at you, and then I'm going to ask you to send in some ideas as well. But I think if you peek inside the life of a 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, you're going to find Harry Potter. You're going to find something called Tamagotchi. I just learned about this recently. Tamagotchi is, I guess, some kind of a little handheld digital pet that kids this age are into. You're going to find interest in something called High School Musical and Webkins. You're also going to find out, if you haven't figured out already, by the kids who are skating in front of your house every day and in the alley, they're into skateboarding. So what else? You know, kids these days are into lots of things. The more we kind of know what they're into, the more we're going to be able to engage them and enter through their door and then be able to teach. I just was talking to a person in San Bernardino who said that he's teaching about the Roman missal changes and using Harry Potter as his introduction. He was able to find a way to connect the importance of the words that are used in casting spells in Harry Potter to say, well, in a fake world, if words are so important, they must be much more important in our real world where we worship God. So I just thought that was brilliant. Some of you have been sending in some suggestions here. We got some. Nick, are you ready to fill us in on what you got?
Sure, we have some good ones here, Joe. We have things like scouting, Justin Bieber, sports, any sports, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid, video games, things like Mario, anything electronic, music, iPods, texting, anything that's perceived as being cool, cars, songs, other types of music, silly bands, pretty much everything you can imagine.
They are into a lot, aren't they? What's neat nowadays is so many of you are writing sports. What's neat is how much girls are into sports, because there was a time where sports metaphors were seen as something that would only reach the boys, and that's not true anymore. And so using sports images is a way to really capture the attention of kids of both genders, and so that's a really good hook. Well, thank you for sending those in, and Nick for summarizing some of them. There's lots more still coming in, so those are kind of fun to look at.